Welcome back to State and Local Government and Politics. In Part 5 of the module on sustainability, we'll discuss resource management and development. One resource that is critical to the modern conceptions of the good life is the availability of energy, both electrical and thermal, for use in private residences and commercial enterprises. It has become increasingly clear that the major contemporary sources of energy, such as fossil fuels, oil and coal, present a high cost to the health of the environment, and that we must rethink our energy future and be prepared to make significant changes in how we travel, how we produce goods and services, and how we design our homes and workplaces. All state and local governments are facing hundreds of policy decisions precisely in this area of energy provision, patterns of consumption, sources of supply, choices of products, and design of workplaces in commercial and residential zoning and building regulations. Far beyond the reach of state and local governments, the U.S. federal government, international commodity cartels, and multinational energy firms play a major role in shaping energy markets, thereby affecting environmental policy choices available to governments. In the early 1970s, the very commonly shared viewpoint of the long-term sustainability of petroleum supplies began to change in very significant ways. First, social and political values at the grassroots community level in many regions of the nation began to focus greater attention on the green or pro-environment initiatives, and public interest groups promoted new conservation-oriented and ecologically sensitive views of sustainability found to be particularly strong among younger generations. Second, to address social equity concerns, some public utility commissions placed increasingly greater emphasis on equitable energy distribution to privileged and underprivileged households and businesses alike, and some PUCs began to explore the potential role of alternative, renewable energy supplies. Third, some environmental interests identified alternative modes of living, for example, next-generation building design and reduced toxic emissions, intended to enhance the quality of life in communities in ways that were not injurious to the environment. And fourth, land use planners focused increasingly more attention on the role of mass transit development in metropolitan areas, for example, the Bay Area rapid transit, where burgeoning urban and suburban areas produced insufferable traffic congestion. While alternative energy slipped from the national policy radar screen for much of the 1980s, a number of states and many local communities continued to explore energy policy innovations. In California, renewable energy systems were encouraged by state tax initiatives. Geothermal energy was developed in the Imperial Valley along the U.S.-Mexico border. Wind energy was harnessed in the Altamont Pass region in Northern California. California researchers conducted research on clean coal and fluid bed combustion chamber technology for electric generation plants. In the post-September 11th policy environment, state and local energy innovation is primarily advanced through three principal mechanisms. First, states create markets for renewable energy through renewable energy portfolios, RPSs. RPSs are benchmarks for the portion of energy used by state consumers that must be supplied by renewable sources. RPS standards can be met either through direct use of renewable energy by consumers or using green tags. Renewable energy portfolios. A requirement that state utilities obtain a certain percentage or output measured in kilowatt hours of their power supply from renewable energy sources. RPSs, or Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards, are benchmarks for the portion of energy used by state consumers that must be supplied by renewable sources. Green tags represent a validation that renewable energy was produced and made available on the electric grid. States and local governments also encourage renewable energy innovation with price subsidies or inducement to renewable energy consumers. During periods of transition to new sources of clean energy, the market price for green energy tends to be higher than conventional fossil fuel energy. To promote further development of clean energy sources and in time reduce the cost of those sources, those responsible parties who generate renewable energy for grid use or who use renewable energy sources are offered financial incentives to encourage their sustainability promoting economic choices. Price subsidies are financial assistance granted by the government to a certain person or group whose actions are regarded as being in the public interest. Finally, state and local governments provide research money to underwrite applied research in science and engineering for the development of practical, sustainable energy infrastructure. In Part 6, we'll look at the core dimensions of sustainability and environmental protection.